Hello, friends, and welcome to Borders and Beyond. I'm your host, Chitresh Kapoor. In today's episode, we are honored to be joined by Rear Admiral Girish Garg, one of the most experienced voices when it comes to Indian maritime defense landscape. Today, we are going to be diving deep into the modernization of Indian Navy, especially when it comes to submarines, fleet, aircraft carriers, एंड एंटी पायरेसी मिशंस. आप लोगों ने सुना होगा इंडियन नेवी ने लास्ट ईयर कुछ एंटी पायरेसी ऑपरेशंस किए थे. सो वी आर गोइंग टू बी टॉकिंग अबाउट ऑल ऑफ दैट एंड पर्टिकुलरली द फ्यूचर ऑफ नेवल वॉरफेयर दैट इज इन इंडिया एट दिस पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम. सो वेलकम रियर एडमिरल. हाउ आर यू सर?
Fine, thank you, Chitresh, and thank you for hosting me on this show. It's certainly an honor and a pleasure, and I look forward to a very meaningful and worthy interaction.
So first I'd like to ask from you, what is your take on submarines versus aircraft carrier? While people are saying that we need to have 3 aircraft carriers, is it something like an obsolete machine? Because if we were to talk about Air Force and Army, they are primarily focusing on missiles technology. So aircraft carriers, don't they become a sitting duck? हम 1971 वॉर में भी देखा था, हमें अपना एयरक्राफ्ट कैरियर हमें छुपाना पड़ गया था from their submarines in the Pakistan submarine. So what do you think, what should our strategy be for our audiences who are confused, where are we heading to?
Chitresh, this debate about submarines versus aircraft carriers is pretty old. Since the time the aircraft carriers came in this world, this debate has been raging. I've seen this debate many a times. I think when we compare submarines with aircraft carriers, we are actually comparing apples with oranges. Both have a different role to perform. Both have a different charter. Both have different roles in combat or in peacetime or in less than war situations. Whilst the submarines perform primarily underwater, their domain is underwater, and they rely on stealth. Whereas an aircraft carrier is a visible proponent of national defense and nation's war fighting. A submarine, and the aircraft carrier are two totally different platforms in the way they affect the outcome or they affect the way we conduct our operations. The submarine effectiveness is primarily being underwater, remaining undetected. Please understand, the moment a submarine is detected, it's as good as dead. Whereas an aircraft carrier, its effectiveness lies in it being visible. Because it is visible, it is effective. So they're two different things. And I must say that it cannot be either an aircraft carrier or a submarine. I think that's a very wrong argument. It has to, both are complementary to each other. In a balanced navy like ours, we need both. So in my view, stealth is the forte of a submarine, and visibility and force projection is the forte of aircraft carrier. You mentioned that is aircraft carrier obsolete? Certainly not. Certainly not. Aircraft carrier, I feel, will remain relevant not only in the near future, even in the long time to come. Whatever be the nature of the warfare, aircraft carrier has its unique capabilities which no other platform, warfighting platform of the Navy or the maritime force can achieve. So aircraft carriers will remain relevant. I've heard you mentioned about aircraft carriers being sitting ducks. I've heard this argument many a times. In my 40 years career in the Navy, we've had this discussion a number of times. I've heard a lot of experts telling they are sitting ducks. I think it is too simplification of the whole war fighting and use of carrier. Today's technology, both offensive as well as defensive, has gone multifold into advancements. When you say, or when anybody says that aircraft carriers are sitting ducks, they are probably presuming that the offensive capability of the enemy is all good, all lethal, and whereas the defensive capability of the Indian Navy or the aircraft carrier using Navy is zilch. that the enemy can at will fire a missile or a torpedo at an aircraft carrier, and aircraft carrier is not able to defend itself, and it will take a hit and sink. I think we are underestimating the technology in self-defense or underwater defense. So I think the pace at which the offensive capabilities of the world have increased, so has the defensive capabilities of the fleet has also in parallel enhanced multiple times. So whilst the enemy may have anti-ship missiles, torpedoes, the anti-ship missile defense, the anti-torpedo defense is equally powerful, equally robust. And I must say, in the context of Indian Navy, I think our air defense systems, our anti-submarine platforms are state of the art, and we are very much capable of defending not only our aircraft carrier but the entire fleet that we operate. So I think this argument that aircraft carrier is sitting duck, I think it's too simplistic, and I don't agree to that argument.
Sir, when we talk about aircraft carrier, usually it never travels alone. So, for our viewers, if you could just help us understand when an aircraft carrier is moving, what does it include? Frigates, destroyers? If you could just explain a bit of that.
Yeah, Chitresh, when a carrier moves, it moves along with a flotilla of ships and submarines, and it's collectively known as a CBG, Carrier Battle Group. So a carrier very rarely operates single. It moves as a carrier battle group. Now, this carrier battle group comprises of submarines. There are different tactics how to use this CBG and its escort ships. But primarily, there will be a submarine which will be ahead of the carrier task force, which will try and detect and neutralize any threat that comes to the carrier. Then there are a mix of destroyers, cruisers, corvettes, all kinds of warships, which form a kind of a screen around the aircraft carrier. And please remember that many people think that these carrier battle groups or the ships, escort ships of the carrier, are solely to defend the carrier. So it's a waste of money. Oh, एक जहाज को बचाने के लिए 50 जहाज साथ में चल रहे हैं. It's like one VIP moving with 50 bodyguards.
Yes.
So they think the bodyguard का काम खाली VIP को बचाना है. That's very untrue. The carrier battle group, when it moves, the escort ships, apart from defending the carrier, have their own independent use, which can be used in various ways in a war. They have anti-air capabilities. They have anti-submarine capabilities. They can neutralize enemy submarines. The submarine may not be trying to just harm the carrier. It may be just lurking around to gain intelligence. May wait for an opportune moment to strike at some other strategic target. So these ships help also in neutralizing the threats, which may not be to the carrier alone, but to the nation. VA and VPs we call assets. The carrier is just one of the assets. There are many strategic targets that the enemy may try and neutralize in our which are of our strategic interest. So these ships, which form part of the carrier battle group, are also very important to neutralize these threats. So I think I just wanted to put this doubt to rest, that a carrier moves with so many people and it's a waste of effort. I think that's not.
So what is our Indian Navy's strategy? Are we looking at sea dominance or a sea denial? Because probably sea dominance can come only through aircraft carriers. Something like the US Navy's. It's lurking across the world. They've got multiple aircraft carriers. So what is our strategy? Because at this point of time, India does not have those global ambitions. I want them to be, because at the end of the day, power projection does come from the fifth generation stealth aircrafts, the B-2 bomber types bombers, and aircraft carriers. I am of the firm opinion of that. But that's just me in my personal capacity. You from the Indian Navy, what do you think? Where is Indian Navy at? And what is the role of Indian Navy? Is it looking at also eventually, once we grow from a $4 trillion to maybe 10, 15, $20 trillion in about a decade or so? So are we looking at expanding our presence?
Chitresh, there are two concepts in war fighting. You mentioned sea denial, and one is sea control. These are the two concepts which are used in maritime theater in combat. Sea denial is basically you are denying the enemy the use of a certain area of the sea, to his warships, to his ships, which is much easier to achieve because you are not committing your own forces. You can lay some mines, and just promulgate the mines, and that prevents the enemy from using the area that we don't want him to use. We can have a submarine, somewhere underwater. It may not be there, but we can just promulgate. It's called a concept in maritime world called fleet in being. Fleet in being is that the enemy keeps guessing that there may be a submarine, there may be some danger, and it prevents them from using that area that we don't want them to use. That is sea denial.
Elaborate fleet in being a little more for our users.
Fleet in being is something like you can say a ghost fleet. That means मेरा प्लेटफॉर्म उधर नहीं है, लेकिन मैं एनिमी के दिमाग में ये शक डाल देता हूं कि वहां पर उनका प्लेटफॉर्म है, वहां पर उनकी सबमरीन है. ही इज नॉट श्योर अबाउट इट, बट उसके दिमाग में एक डाउट मैंने डाल दिया कि यहां पर एनिमी का कोई प्लेटफॉर्म सबमरीन, प्राइमरली सबमरीन, उस एरिया में है जिसको वो देख नहीं पा रहा है, लेकिन उसको लग रहा है कि वहां पर वो प्लेटफॉर्म हो सकता है, मुझे उससे खतरा हो सकता है. तो हालांकि वो श्योर नहीं है. तो दैट इज कॉल्ड फ्लीट इन बीइंग. मीन एक्चुअल फ्लीट वहां पर नहीं है, एक्चुअल एसेट्स में भी वहां पर नहीं है, लेकिन आई हैव क्रिएटेड अ टैक्टिकल सिचुएशन, आई हैव क्रिएटेड अ पिक्चर इन अ वे दैट द एनिमी थिंक्स दैट देयर इज अ थ्रेट, एंड उस डर से अपना बचाव करने के लिए they will be forced not to take a chance and put their ships or assets in that area. कि कहीं अगर गलती से उधर सबमरीन हुई या उधर एनिमी का कोई हिडन प्लेटफॉर्म हुआ तो it can attack them. So that is what is called fleet in being.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about Operation Sindoor, which has recently got concluded. So what was the Navy's role? Although वो खुल के नहीं आया, what was the Navy's role? It was said they were carrier battle groups. There was a Navy formation. If you could just explain a little bit about it, and how did Indian Navy? What was the Navy's role here? And also during the Kargil war, because it is around the same time, July in 1999, 26 years back, I think there was a Navy blockade that had happened in Karachi. So if you could just talk a bit about both of them, sir.
You mentioned about these two things, Kargil and Sindoor. The Navy played a very, very potent role, in both these wars to get the outcome that we finally got. Navy in both these cases forward deployed its assets, the aircraft carriers, the frontline ships, the submarines, and I mentioned about fleet in being. I just mentioned about fleet in being. This concept was very effectively utilized during both these wars, the Kargil as well as Sindoor, and it forced the Pakistan Navy to remain confined to their harbors. This threat that the Indian Navy posed, the real threat and the force in being, the unseen threat, both of these very effectively used by the Indian Navy. We did a kind of psyops on the enemy's morale. You must have seen the media reports in the open domain that when this as a build up to the Op Sindoor, between the carnage that happened, unfortunate, and the Op Sindoor, that whatever period was there in between, the Indian Navy carried out strategic missile firings. It carried out combat maneuvers, drills. It was basically to reflect to the Pakistanis that Indian Navy is fully ready, it's combat worthy, its powder is dry, and should there be a requirement, Indian Navy is capable and is combat ready 100% to put a lethal charge on Pakistani shores. And I think that played a lot on the mind of the Pakistani forces, And one route which is very, very critical in any combat is the sea route, the maritime theater. That was completely blocked by the Indian Navy. And therefore, one front of the war, you can imagine how effective it is, that one complete front of the war, that's the maritime front, was completely sealed by Indian Navy. I think they say that Navy is a silent service. We do our work silently. People doesn't know, because when we are out at sea, nobody sees what we are doing, and it's not very visible, but it is extremely effective. I think, and that's what happened in Kargil. That's what happened in Sindoor, and I think the Pakistanis realize the might of the Indian Navy, and I think that has definitely affected, helped India in the final outcome that we finally achieved in both these wars.
So when they say in Kargil war, we actually did a navy blockade, and Pakistan was not left with enough crude oil. How true is that? Did we actually do it? And if you can just share any open information around it.
See, I would be able to share with you only what is there in the public domain. I was there in 1999 Kargil when it happened. I was part of the naval ops, so of course a lot of things happened. But I wouldn't say that we did a blockade in the conventional sense. When you do a blockade in the conventional sense, you promulgate a blockade, and then you do a whole lot of actions that you take at sea, to promulgate a blockade. I wouldn't say that we did a blockade in the conventional sense that the blockade is, but yes, our presence in that area of the Makran coast, Pakistan, it did raise the cost of shipping, in that area, because it was known that should the Indian Navy get fully involved, there can be damage to the ships. Should there be a war and on that coast, there'll be a cost to shipping. So yes, it kept ships away from Pakistani ports and harbors. The ships which were in harbor, they were scared to come out. Those were out. I'm talking about the merchant traffic. Did not really want to venture into Pakistani coast. So yes, Pakistani shipping, I'm talking about merchant shipping, was adversely affected from the primary, as I said again, that just the very by virtue of the fact that the Indian Navy was present, and it was known that Indian Navy could just escalate at will. It adversely affected Pakistan's trade in and out, and of course, it had its own effect on the war and the economy of Pakistan.
So my question to you is, the Pahalgam attack happened on 22nd April, unfortunate incidents. And we spent 14 days to respond. Purely as a military man, someone like you who spent more than 3 to 4 decades in the Indian Armed Forces, do you not think there was something wrong? We should have not waited for 14 days. 14 दिन एक enough time होता है adversary को prepare करने के लिए. If we are spending 60-80 billion dollars, I want you to wear, मतलब दिल से आप मुझे बताओ, 14 दिन ज्यादा नहीं थे. मतलब ideally 23rd 24th को respond जाना चाहिए था, और अगर नहीं गया, because Pakistan will continue to do what it is doing best. They do not have any aspirations कि मुझे अपने बच्चे को पढ़ाना है, मुझे अपने बच्चे को IIT भेजना है, MBA के लिए IIM अहमदाबाद भेजना है, नेक्स्ट AI टूल बनाना है, नेक्स्ट कैंसर ड्रग निकालना है. They don't have any aspirations. They've just got funding from IMF. They will again do something nasty. My point is, वो करे और उसके अगले दिन हम क्यों नहीं कर पाते? Why it took the same time in Uri, it took the same time when it unfortunate thing happened in Balakot, and now here.
See, Chitresh, the scale at which we responded, you saw the final scale that happened. The scale at which we responded, it requires a certain amount of planning. It requires a certain amount of preparation. We could have done it in 48 hours, as you are mentioning. But then, when your aim is to have 100% success, when your aim is to ensure that what is your aim, you don't miss it even by a whisker, then you need to plan. You need to sit down with your, and it's a tri-service thing. It's not a single service issue. You need to have an army, navy, air force all together. So everybody has to be on the same platform. Everybody has to be in sync with each other. It's a huge. It may look very simple to you, but targeting deep inside enemy territory requires a tremendous amount of planning. It's not that we are unprepared. That's the bread and butter of the army, navy, and the air force. We are ready 24/7. But should time be on our side, it is always better. It is always better to prepare yourself, rehearse. There are simulations done. You rehearse, you practice what you are trying to, because you have time on your side. There was no fire. I mean, we attacked. 22nd happened. People say you should have done 23rd, 24th. We could have done it. No problem. We could have done it. We are ready. But to be 110% sure what we are doing, because it's a huge thing to go into enemy territory and attack. It has huge consequences. You saw that. So we have to be very sure. It's not a video game that we are playing. That okay, नहीं है ठीक लगा दोबारा फिर attack कर देंगे. 10 missile fire करे 4 नहीं लगे. That's not the way it is. If I fire at 10 targets, all 10 must hit on the first attempt. There's no second attempt. There's no third attempt. It must have happened. That's the way a professional armed forces must conduct themselves, must conduct their operations. So I think if you ask me as a professional military man, 2 weeks, what we achieved was outstanding. It's not good. It's not excellent. It's outstanding. You see any professional Navy, Army, Air Force, armed forces in the world, the scale at which we did Op Sindoor and the success rate that we achieved. If we took 2 weeks for it, I think it is outstanding. It's outstanding that in 2 weeks we could achieve that with the accuracy, the lethality, the precision that we achieved, and in complete coordination between the three services, and of course our diplomatic corps, the way we went about it. I think, and it kept, please understand, you are thinking that we should have responded. Pakistan always knew that India will respond. They had no doubt. When will it respond? They were on their tenterhooks. So we made them sweat for 14 days. कि कब अटैक होगा, अब हिंदुस्तान क्या करेगा, कैसे करेगा, कब करेगा, कहां करेगा. You imagine the effect on their troop readiness. After a certain point in time, you cannot be in the highest state of alert, which they were for a prolonged time. Then it, of course, at certain point in time, your fatigue starts setting in, your alertness level starts going down. So I think there is a merit in the delay. There is a merit. It's not that, of course, in emotions, the national emotions were, but we don't fight war on emotions alone. Wars are, if I was fighting my wars on emotion, I think we would have got a bloody face at some point in time. So I think, we must give due credit to the military planners and executioners. We are all the people who do this. Very, very senior people, and they know their job. And we just don't get carried away by emotions. Professional people don't just get carried away by emotions. They see practicality. You remember 1971 war. Indira Gandhi wanted, kab karenge? And General Manekshaw said, Madam, 6 mahina lagega. I need 6 months time. He was pretty clear, and I was not surprised. If I was there, I would have also said the same thing. There was a lot of political pressure at that point in time. You are aware, 1971. But General Manekshaw said, "No, madam, I need 6 months time to prepare." He was given, and then he saw the outcome. I am sure if General Manekshaw at that point in time would have succumbed to the political pressure and said, "Kya madam, aap kal bolte, main kal launch kar deta hu," the outcome of the 71 war would have been totally different. So I think, in my opinion, professional opinion, 14 days is an outstanding time taken, outstandingly less time taken to do what we did.
Sir,
and I'm proud of. I was not part of Sindoor. I had retired by the time, but I am proud of our armed forces that in just 14 days they could do what they did. And I can challenge Any professional Navy will find it difficult, Navy, Army, Air Force will find it difficult to do what we did in 14 days reaction time.
No, that's absolutely. Everyone is proud of our armed forces. So, what is this obsession about raising the escalation matrix? We will hit only terror camps and not the Makkah of the terrorism. The Makkah of terrorism is GHQ Rawalpindi. So why did we have to raise that escalation matrix? I'm trying to understand from the military standoff that we are going to do this and then we'll wait. So why not directly one BrahMos, GHQ Rawalpindi, Jai Shri Ram, Khatam Kahani? So why not do that and that's it? Because that's where the terrorism starts.
See, Chitra, that's what I said again. I'll repeat myself. Wars and operations are not based on emotions. They are based on, if you ask an average Indian, he'll tell you the same thing. अरे यार क्यों टाइम वेस्ट कर रहे हो बॉम्ब GHQ बॉम्ब इस्लामाबाद let's kill the story root हुआ है. Unfortunately, between nations, we don't work like that. In geopolitics, in geostrategic environments, there are a whole lot of external factors that also you have to consider. It's not just कि उड़ा दो. It's not as simple as that. There are multiple factors that one has to account, and it's a very tough call that the government has to take. As a military man, of course, I would be happy, to bomb GHQ and just raise it to ground. But do you think that will solve the problem? I don't think. One building you destroy, somebody else they'll come up somewhere else. So if the government of India was convinced that by bombing GHQ this problem will be settled once and for all, yes, certainly it would have been. But unfortunately, that's not the way it works. So, and you want to convey a message because finally you are staying in an interconnected world. You cannot isolate yourself from the rest of the world. So you need to decide what message you want to convey to the world. Are you an aggressor or you are a defender? Our message was that we are not aggressor. We are doing this in self-defense. Our intention is not to attack Pakistan. We are trying to do it in self-defense. आपने हमारे आके अटैक करा, we are left with no choice. So to prove that point and to convey to the people that I mean what I am saying, I attack only legitimate terrorist targets. I do not attack targets which openly or directly do not, in public view, in international view, does not directly contribute in visible spectrum to terrorism. And since I am doing it in defense of terrorism, I attack only terrorist targets. Moment I go beyond terrorist targets, then my argument that I am doing it in self-defense doesn't hold ground. It's very difficult to convince the world that I'm trying to bomb GHQ, I'm trying to bomb civilian targets, which are nothing to do with terrorists, but then I am trying to connect linkages. Because GHQ is army, but army is supporting it. So then it becomes an indirect link. It becomes more difficult. So world opinion matters a lot. The escalation matrix that you talked about is based on that. That had Pakistan not, I'm happy that wiser sense prevailed in Pakistan and they raised the white flag very quickly. But I'm certain that if they would not have done that, at some point in time we would have reached a stage where what you are saying could probably have been one of the options that we would have exercised. But I think Pakistan saw that coming and very timely they just raised the white flag and said, "Maaf kar do."
I like to also understand from you what are the different type of submarines that we have in our Indian Navy. We keep reading and we keep hearing this Kilo class submarine. What is this Kalavari class Scorpion submarine? And where are we principally sourcing them from, sir?
See, Chitresh, you mentioned about the EKM Scorpions. I'll explain to you. EKMs are the Russian submarines that we acquired from erstwhile Soviet Union or Russia. We had 10 of them, which the first one came in 1986 from Russia. We are still left with 7 as of now. Whereas the Kalvari class is the Scorpion submarine, which are the latest submarines. They are French submarines made by Naval Group, and They are made in Mazagon Docks Limited in Mumbai,
Right.
the Scorpion submarines. Whereas the EKMs, the Sindhu Ghosh class, they were completely Russian. They were made in Russia, and we just bought them outright from Russia. The primary difference between them, of course, the EKMs or the kilo class, as they are called, are of the 80s technology, of the 70s, 80s vintage. They are those primarily Cold War era technology, whereas the Scorpions are the latest. We just inducted them, so they are the latest. So of course, the difference between the time gap between the technology is almost 40-45 years. The world changes, the technology changes in this period. So they are state of the art. They are modular. I'm talking about the Scorpions. Not that the Sindhu Ghosh class or we call the Kilo class are any worse. They were much ahead of their time in technology. We are still using them, and they are quite potent. Even now, they're very relevant to today's war fighting. It's not that they're obsolete. And not only Indian Navy, a lot of other navies in the world are also using these Kilo class submarines. So they are still very relevant. But yes, they are now on their way out. They have done their fair bit. Scorpions, of course, state of the art, modular, and because today technology is much more advanced than what was in the 70s, it's more miniaturization, more sophistication. So some Scorpion submarine is lighter, smaller, modular, and is more stealthy. The stealth is the backbone of a submarine, and in that respect, the Scorpions are more stealthier because they use more latest, stealth technology. So, of course, and I'm sure that the Scorpion submarines will remain relevant in the combat for next 30-40 years that we are there. And it's modular, so it's got easy to upgrade. Scorpions are AIP compatible, air independent propulsion compatible. We don't have the AIP. We are looking at indigenous AIP for
So
the
can you
Scorpion.
explain what is AIP and why it is important?
AIP is air independent propulsion. What happens is in a submarine, in a conventional submarine or a non-AIP submarine, a submarine has to surface once every 2 to 3 days to charge its batteries. Once it remains underwater, it uses its batteries to run. The batteries, like you charge our mobile. Because we use mobile every depending on how you use it, you have to charge a mobile every day. Now, if I put AIP in your mobile, then you won't have to charge it for 2 weeks. It's good or not? That now, if I give you a technology in the mobile that you don't have to charge for 2 weeks. Similarly, AIP in submarines prevents it from coming up on surface to charge its batteries. It increases its stealth. Moment a submarine comes on surface to charge its batteries, it's vulnerable to detection. And as I said earlier, the moment a submarine is detected, it is as good as dead. So by putting an AIP, you are enabling a submarine, a conventional submarine, to stay underwater continuously for 2 to 3 weeks without the necessity of having to come up on surface and charge its batteries. It increases its endurance, it increases its stealth, it increases its operational reach, and of course, it makes it more and more potent. So that is air independent propulsion, and it is we mentioned Scorpion submarines are capable of AIP propulsion. We could have bought it outright when we built the submarines, but it was a decision that was taken by us that we will not go in for an imported AIP. We'll make our own. I think it's a fantastic thing, and I think very soon our own indigenous AIP will be retrofitted in the Scorpion submarines. So I think Scorpion submarines is the future of our underwater capabilities for many decades to come. And Kilo classes are, I think, now on their way out.
And these are all diesel submarines.
Yes, they are all diesel electric submarines, conventional diesel electric submarines.
But what about INS Arihant? I think that is a nuclear powered.
Arihant is an SSBN class, nuclear ballistic missile capability. capable submarines, they run on nuclear propulsion. Whilst these we mentioned this Kilo class and the Scorpion class, they are conventional diesel electric submarines. Diesel electric submarines means they use diesel. They have motors which use diesel or batteries to run. Whereas SSN or SSBN uses a nuclear reactor, and they are nuclear powered, and the propulsion is through nuclear means. So that's a different ball game completely. Conventional versus nuclear.
And I'm assuming US Navy is primarily all nuclear.
Yeah, I mean, see, any navy which is looking at global reach, blue water aspirations, would like to go for nuclear submarine because they have unlimited endurance.
Yeah.
They have speed, they have stealth because they don't have to come up. I mentioned about, coming up on surface to charge your batteries. Even in AIP, you need to come up once in 2-3 weeks. In nuclear submarines, you don't need to come on surface for months together because there is no need to charge. So you imagine you don't have to come up at all. So it increases your stealth, it increases your operational capabilities. So of course, nuclear submarines are of a different, completely different ball game. And US, of course, it has global. They have global aspirations. So for them, nuclear suits better than the conventional.
So how is our advancements in military technology of Indian Navy as compared to our main adversary, which is China, and the puppet of China, which is Pakistan? So how do we, so in a two-front war scenario that we're always talking about for decades together, so is our Indian Navy capable enough to guard from Malacca all the way to Gwadar?
See, Chitresh, I will first talk about the Chinese Navy. One of the biggest advantages that I see in China vis-a-vis India in a maritime combat, in the maritime theater, is the distance. If China has to get into a maritime conflict with India, they'll have to come somewhere in the Indian Ocean region, either in the Bay of Bengal or the Arabian Sea, and then, probably fight us. So it increases its logistics chain tremendously. It's not easy to fight war thousands of kilometers away from your base. It's not easy to fight and sustain. More important is sustain yourself. So China, we have a huge advantage in fact that we are not looking at going and fighting Chinese in the South China Sea or next to their base. We don't have that aspirations. I don't think India has those kind of aggressive expeditionary ambitions against China. But China certainly has those kind of probably ambitions. But it's going to be a huge logistics challenge for them, to fight us in our backwaters. As far as military numbers are concerned, I would be quite frank with you to say that yes, numerically and in some way, in some technology, Chinese have an edge over us. If I talk about the Navy, yes, they have a slight edge over us. But we can more than make up for that by, as I said, fighting in our own areas and forcing Chinese Navy to come and fight in our area, so where we will have a upper hand. That is a huge advantage that I see vis-a-vis China. As far as Pakistan is concerned, I think Pakistani armed forces are no match to our capabilities. Pakistan has been riding all along on their nuclear deterrence. Their focus was neutral deterrence, and they thought that since they have nuclear deterrence, India will never attack, and so their whole focus was on the nuclear, and they did not concentrate that much on spending money on modernizing their army, navy, and air force, because they were pretty sure that in nuclear deterrence हमें हिंदुस्तान को कुछ करने नहीं देगा, तो हमें कुछ करने की जरूरत नहीं है, न्यूक्लियर करते रहो और हिंदुस्तानी कुछ करेंगे नहीं, तो हमें और किसी में पैसा डालने की जरूरत नहीं है, शिप सबमरीन वगैरह चाहिए. Now, we have seen in Sindoor that nuclear bluff has been called.
Yeah. Now, not talking about
it. Openly said. अब पाकिस्तान को झटका लग गया. ये क्या हो गया, हमारा जो न्यूक्लियर ब्लफ था ये तो चलेगा नहीं. And moment you keep the nuclear bluff aside and then you compare, you may think that I am biased because I am a naval officer. I have spent 40 years in the Navy, so I am biased. You dispassionately do analysis. Anybody can do a dispassionate analysis. Today is the world of Google, Chat GPT. आप डालिए, देखिए कहाँ है पाकिस्तान की आर्म फोर्सेस और कहाँ है भारत की आर्म फोर्सेस, आर्मी, नेवी, एयरफोर्स. देखिए, सिंपल. डोंट हैव टू बी अ बिग जियो स्ट्रेटेजिक और डोंट हैव टू बी अ ह्यूज एक्सपीरियंस आर्मी, नेवी, एयरफोर्स मैन. एज सिंपल लेमैन आप कीजिए, आप देखिए कहाँ है. कोई कंपैरिजन नहीं है. Absolutely no comparison. And I can tell you that whilst we may say that Pakistan, China is the godfather of Pakistan, but war is a different thing. To get directly involved in conflict, should there be India Pakistan conflict, China to get directly involved, it will take a huge amount of thinking on part of China to get directly involved in the combat between India and Pakistan. Yes, indirectly, even in Op Sindhu, we've seen in the open domain, people saying that there were three enemies we were fighting. So in the background, yes, China will certainly help, but openly direct involvement, I have my doubts.
So, particularly when we talk about the French submarine, हमारे एयरफोर्स में रफेल में ब्रह्मोस फिट नहीं हो रहा था because they did not give us the source code. So, do we have similar problems with the French submarines here?
See, Chitresh, whenever we buy something from any foreign country, there will be challenges. Because no country would want to part everything that they have built in that. So that is why Atmanirbharta is very, very important. And it's not just the French. You buy anything from anyone. Whether you buy it from Americans, you buy from British, you buy from Germans, whichever country you buy, they will keep certain things up their arms. They'll make you struggle. They will not share everything with you. And we've seen this for decades. We've been importing weapons and platforms. We've seen this for decades. We have to find a way out to integration. You mentioned integration of indigenous weapons and sensors into an imported platform has always been a challenge. It's always been a challenge. But I must share with you that I can talk about the Navy. Indian Navy has very, very successfully integrated their indigenous weapons and sensors, systems and subsystems into foreign platforms with their cooperation, without their cooperation. And I think we have now reached a level of maturity in our indigenous technology wherein we are capable. We have institutions in the Navy. We have professional institutions in the Navy whose full-time job is to get into this business of integration. But now, very happily, we have capability in the private sector who have this capability, who are working very actively in integrating the indigenous sensors and weapons and subsystems into imported technology without the help or without an active support of the host or the OEM. So I think, yes, it's challenging. I won't say it's easy, but it is doable and we are quite capable of doing it and we have done it. And I'm sure that we'll do it in the future also. But yes, the answer lies, of course, in building our own so that we don't have to face these challenges of buying and then trying to integrate.
Because we can see in S-400, it's been pending for a very long time because Russia got involved with Ukraine. And USA will make sure Russia will always be involved in some war or the another. Presidents will come, presidents will go. Their Cold War mentality with each other will never change. Or फंसेंगे हम.
Yeah, when you buy anything from abroad, you are at their mercy. Tomorrow, today is our friend. Let's say we buy from X country. Today is our friend. So we buy from him. In geopolitics, you don't know. Tomorrow he may become our enemy number one. If his interests don't align with ours, he may become enemy number one. And tomorrow, if you need that platform in combat, he may just stop supporting you. You may need spares when you operate a platform. You need spares. You need technical support. You need various wherewithal to sustain those platforms, that country can just decide to shut the tap. And then you won't be able to use that platform, or you won't be able to use it as effectively as it should be. So that challenge, that is the reason why Indian government and armed forces are going full throttle on indigenization. Atmanirbhar Bharat is not a slogan for us. It's a mission for us. It's an operational necessity for us. Some people think Atmanirbhar Bharat is government ka slogan hai, it's just propaganda. No, it's a reality for us. It's an operational necessity for us. And we realize it, and I think Indian armed forces are at the forefront of Atmanirbharta. Not because we are political, but because Atmanirbharta is the call of the day. It's an operational necessity for the Indian armed forces.
So my final question to you would be, over the last few years, we've seen a lot of anti-piracy missions that Indian Navy has done. Particularly, अभी last year की बात है जब पाकिस्तानी crew members को हमने बचाया, and then they were, saying that slogan Hindustan Zindabad. I mean, that's the last thing we can expect them to say. But हाँ, पाकिस्तानी बचने के बाद तो कुछ भी कहेंगे, बाद में they will do whatever they are very good at. But is there a specific reason why we are doing it? Does it become sort of a training for our Indian Navy कि चलो आपको ट्रेनिंग भी मुफ्त में मिल गई, आपको geopolitical advantage भी मिल गया और वाहवाही भी मिल गई because you have helped save lives? What do you have to say to these particular missions, the anti-piracy missions that we are doing?
Chitresh, anti-piracy missions are not free. You're saying free with training will get, it costs a lot of money.
No, when I meant free, I meant free for our Navy, that there is a new place, we are testing our boys to test in a new place. I meant in that regards.
Anti-piracy missions, how did Indian Navy get involved in anti-piracy missions? It is basically to prevent and to safeguard our shipping. The purpose of Indian Navy's anti-piracy missions is, if I take example of Gulf of Aden, where the anti-piracy mission is at its, the main anti-piracy missions are there. Our ships which were transiting through the Red Sea, Gulf of Aden area were getting targeted. So Indian Navy as a maritime element of India's force projection, it was incumbent upon Indian Navy to defend its maritime interests, and therefore we went into anti-piracy missions to safeguard our ships. But of course, Vasudev Kutumbakam is our, the world is my family is our motto. So we just don't be selfish enough and say कि भाई ये जो Indian shipping है, जो ships India से आ रहे जा रहे हैं, हम उसी को defend करेंगे, बाकी भाड़ में जाओ. We don't do that. So any ship which is in trouble, including Pakistani, I mean, you can imagine, Pakistani ships or people who are in trouble, in those we save them. So and today we have reached a situation where Indian Navy anti-piracy missions are so effective that countries, smaller countries who do not have the wherewithal to guard their ships in those areas, they request Indian Navy कि भाई हमारा भी ध्यान रख लो. And Indian Navy does it, and we don't charge any money for them. It costs, please imagine, there are thousands of people on those ships, multiple ships, fuel. It costs a lot of money. We don't charge anything. It's our way of giving it to our friends. So anti-piracy missions are primarily aimed at defending our shipborne traffic, and of course of our friends. And of course it has its own, I would say, advantages. As you mentioned, it gives us more exposure to anti-piracy operations. It helps us train ourselves. It helps train our people. It helps us validate our concepts. Of course, these are all the I would say side benefits of the anti-piracy operation, but the main focus remains to defend our shipping from the piracy that's going on.
On that note, thank you very much, sir. Thank you so very much for your insights and helping us understand the big picture. It is extremely important, our viewers, हम लोगों को लगता है कि हमारा पाकिस्तान के साथ वॉर कश्मीर में हो रही है, China again Ladakh. But if a country has to progress, and a country like India, which aspires from a $4 trillion to 10, 15 and beyond, and we want to have a developed and a Viksit Bharat by 2047, Indian Navy will play an extremely important role. And so this is just the beginning. Once again, thank you so much, sir. And for our viewers, please stay tuned to Borders and Beyond. And we would love to hear from you. And if you have any specific questions, we would love to bounce off to the Admiral, sir. And thank you so much, sir. Jai Hind, Bharat Mata ki Jai, sir.
Thank you, Chitresh. Thank you very much.
Thank you.